I'm Mary Beth Pudup. I am the Director of Community Studies and an instructional professor here at the University of Chicago in a new program called the Committee on Environment, Geography, and Urbanization. In the last half decade, I've come to realize that there is no larger challenge facing the world than climate change, and that I really wanted to focus on that, and was fortunate that this position opened up at the University of Chicago that allowed me to do that. I've had the privilege of learning about a lot of initiatives, some of them very much under the radar screen, and bringing those to students' attention, because I do feel that students are rightly concerned about the future, have often very bleak feelings about what kind of future they're going to face. In one of the courses I teach is global environmental change, and in this class we ask students, what do you care about, what do you know about, and so many of them said things just so abjectly, like, is there a future? Not even what kind of future will it be, but will there be a future? As a professor, you feel responsible for what you say to students, which isn't to say that you want to coddle them and make them think, oh, everything's going to be fine, don't worry, the adults are all taking care of that. They know that's not true because they can see that the adults in the room have actually created some of the very messes that need to be cleaned up. And so what I have done in this global environmental change course, along with my co-teacher, is create what we call spaces of hope. And we use this time at the beginning of each class to bring something that we've learned about to students' attention, and then invite students to bring things that they, to inspire them to go out and find spaces of hope. The very first space of hope that I talk about is the research that has demonstrated that what changes many people's behaviors is seeing what their peers do. And that's a really important message for students to hear, that right out of the gate, if they're composting, if they're recycling, if they are being really conscious stewards of the environment, that they are having an impact. Like, don't despair. People see you doing that, and you are having an impact without maybe even knowing it. And I think that's a great place to start, is giving students a sense of agency on which to build. It's not like, oh, now I have to go out and find a new job or do some more volunteer work. It's no, just amplify what you're doing already. Be proud of it and know that you're having an impact. And that's based or backed up with social research. Methane emissions from food waste generates more greenhouse gas than all of domestic aviation. You can make a difference not by canceling a flight. We all think about what are those jumbo jets? Look what they're doing to the environment. Food waste is actually worse than all of domestic commercial aviation. That's an eye-popping statistic by my account. We just created this space of hope, and we've had students talk about new technology that's addressing wildfires. They had worked it over the summer as a space of hope. We had a student discuss the very real contribution that computer recycling can have in lowering the demand for rare earth minerals. We read so much about recycling's a sham. There's computer recycling is just greenwashing by tech companies, and so it breeds a kind of cynicism that is actually unfounded. It's hard to look at recycling efforts and thinking, I've seen enough recycling trucks dump their stuff in landfills for me to think, oh, where's that really going? And so to learn that those resources were actually being extracted and reused, that kind of turned my head around and just made me reassess my own cynicism, I guess. And that's an important thing, I think, to do periodically in life. Here's the space of hope I'm planning to bring in to the classroom very soon, and it's a way of thinking about the current moment, which seems very bleak as companies cancel their commitments to green practices, to making investments in ESG goals, and then the government seems to be also um, withdrawing from policies, treaties. It can seem that the world is going in the wrong direction. I think I wouldn't dispute, that those are all problems. But here's the thing I want to remind students about is what we could call a kind of climate change counter movement to like roll back standards and go back to let's use plastic straws again. The ferocity of that counter movement is an indication of just how strong the impulse is for change. Counter movements only emerge when there's a movement that someone perceives needs to be countered. And so it's the very success of the environmental movement, of climate change activism, that is calling forth this very desperate attempt, in my view, to roll back regulations, to just almost kind of try to turn back the clock of history. That should be a cause for hope, because it means that there have been successes that have called forth this reaction. What we should do is not kind of throw our hands up and say, oh, look at all these things that are happening that are threatening our gains. We should just kind of keep going because we're winning. Otherwise, people wouldn't be fighting us.